recording session. Satya, if you can too start the recording button. If you have already, that's great.
I just started, Ekta.
Okay, great. So yeah, I'll put myself on mute. Take a 5-10 seconds pause, Satya. Then you can start with your introduction. Just hi, welcome everybody joining for the CSA India Virtual Summit. My name is Satya. Your introduction, and then from there we can go ahead. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ekta.
Great. On my count to 1, 2, and 3, you can start.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to CSA India Summit. This is Satya. I'm a Chief Cybersecurity Architect in Microfocus and also Chairman of CSA Bangalore chapter. I'm very glad to be on this panel where we are going to discuss about the cloud adoption in India and otherwise across the globe during the pandemic lockdown and how it is changing the threat scenario and how we are adopting it and what are the challenges we are facing. And also we are going to conclude with some solutions and suggestions on how the CISOs and the leaders of cybersecurity can take it forward. With that as a context, let me start with Sridhar. Hi, Sridhar. Good afternoon.
Hi, sir.
Can you introduce yourself and then and go to the first topic? What I do have topic question. Maybe I'll give you the question and then you can introduce yourself and move on. The topic what we are discussing today is, we all know that because of the pandemic lockdown, a lot of organizations enforced working from home. Think about banks. Earlier, they never allowed working from home, and they also have to go through work from home option. And we also encountered huge increase of cybersecurity threats. So many are believing that this trend is causing growth of cloud adoption. What is your opinion?
Thank you, Satya, and thanks to CSA the chapter to invite me for this session. My pleasure to be on this. And about myself, been in ITS for 20 plus years and part of cybersecurity leadership in Flipkart, currently working as a head of information security in Flipkart Group. And coming to the question, what you posed, very, very valid and very relevant. So for the last 6-7 months, we have been kind of working in a very new way of working. Most of the organizations have adopted and some are still coping up with it. And some organizations are born digital. So for them, the work from home is nothing new because the tech companies and the IT had work from home culture for some time. So those were very easy to adopt and then move on. Having said that, there have been some challenges with this adoption and organizations are facing it. So earlier, many of the conversations on the security forums, there was a talk saying that is the perimeter diminishing. Now with this new way of working, there is no perimeter. So it is proven that the perimeter is diminished and it is no more organization if it has 5,000 employees and then now there is a 5,000 endpoints which they have to manage and 5,000 perimeters to manage. So having said that, as a cloud adoption increased, definitely multifold. So organizations which never thought of moving into cloud or using Zoom or using Teams or one of the popular apps. So earlier they were all limited to internal network and then working in a way where they can collaborate internally. Now the collaboration happens on cloud, collaboration happens typically on a platform which is owned by a third party. That's nothing but a software as a service being provided. So adoption has increased and it also brought its own way of security risks. If you take work from home itself, people are using shared and public Wi-Fi for providing the services, so that's a risk. And people are using personal devices to provide the services to enterprises, so that's a risk. And they are more prone for security threats of social engineering attacks, which the organization has to cope up. And this all puts together how good you are going to transform your security to kind of adapt to this new way of working. And this is this is not here to go. So we thought in a month of March saying that this would go away in April, and in April we thought this will go on May, and May we thought this may end up in September, October. We are already there. So this is nowhere to go in another year or two. So we have to adopt and then transform ourselves. Both the enterprises as well as the security professional has to rethink, rethink and rejig their entire security way of working.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Sridhar.
sir.
Thank you, Sridhar. That's a real point. The people are facing a lot of challenges, but they end up using more and more cloud services right now. With that said, because you are from financial industry, so what are you seeing? Are you also seeing a trend in this trend is causing growth of cloud adoption? What's your opinion?
Hi Satya, how are you? And thanks to the Cloud Security Alliance for giving me this opportunity. And in fact, one of my first journeys of adopting or getting to know about cloud was from Cloud Security Alliance. When I attempted to read and study on the CCSK certification. So it's always been a good way to interact and learn more about cloud. And I think Cloud Security Alliance is the best way to get all this knowledge. So fortunately, I think I've moved to one of those cloud native companies. Nika is completely cloud, and I've switched from financial services, as you last remember me from. So I was in Max Life Insurance before this. So I think cloud, all this post-pandemic environment or during the pandemic environment, cloud adoption has drastically increased. And I'll just say it's been so for both for cloud natives and also for companies which were primarily on-prem, which is there. So I come from a very different background. I spent almost 15 odd more years in the defense. So we used to kind of consider cloud as an anathema. But I think now everyone is adopting. In let's say in US, they have a Gov cloud, and I think very soon you may never find Indian defense and government also adopting cloud in a big way, considering what we've gone through today. But let's say specifically for us, I've seen that we have tried to focus on moving things to cloud, preferably because I'm not saying that cloud does not have its own risks. I always say that if you don't configure the cloud properly, you will have adequate risk. But I was talking to one of my colleagues today. We were just consulting them on how they can set up their security best practices. So they were asking me a very simple question that we want to set up a server, we want to for our ERP solution, and we were thinking of should we put it in the cloud or should we put it on-prem. So, but the cost was a factor. I said, if you look at what cloud will offer you, right from the basic maintenance to updates to you're not worrying about where the power is going to come from, how you're going to connect to it, and the host of plethora of services which are available in cloud makes that question no-brainer. You have to adopt cloud, and I think we also trying to I'll say suggest and recommend all our third-party services also to be offered from the cloud. Advantage is ease of connectivity, even from perspective of security. I've seen that you already have laid down benchmarks starting from the AWS CIS foundations or the CIS benchmarks for servers, and you can detect them. I think you can detect the misconfigurations in a matter of a few seconds or minutes. I think where the challenge comes is to if you've not implemented those at the design stage, obviously you'll have a challenge implementing it, the security measures, both on cloud or on-prem. So, but the advantage is you can instantly get a view of your security posture on a cloud in a much more simpler way. All the service providers, be it AWS, which provides various cloud native services, or let's say Azure and GCP have very strong cloud security solutions. And I think that's what will trigger this adoption of cloud. Even from work from home, for example, you have various VDI services right from all the providers, Azure, AWS, or VMware. And I think that's what is going to drive. And especially even from a pure SaaS perspective, SaaS applications will definitely be easier to adopt. I think cloud is the way to go. And we have to improve cloud. And I think maybe training, education, awareness, and building more candidates and people working on the cloud would be there. And that's where I think Cloud Security Alliance is playing a great role. And especially, I think I've heard there's a lot of which you are doing in Bangalore, and I wish we should also emulate in Delhi. and other places. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Appreciate that acknowledgement. Yeah, actually, what happens here, just I want to add one comment before I pass it on to Sunil, is that a lot of people do not know that the research articles, whatever is produced by CSA, is actually available free. They do not need to be a member of it. They can use it as is, even for CCM, or whether it is about the top 11 egregious threats, or even whatever the research articles produce, they're free. You do not need to be a member. That's simple thing people do not know. So, I mean, coming to that, CSA does a lot of things on the research and producing a lot of papers. Even for India, we are doing good work. I don't want to bore you with that in this call, but generally what we are trying to speak about is we are trying to address industry challenges through collaboration with industry as well as academia or, and people like you. And it's very important to collaborate and address the challenges what then the latest pandemic scenario or otherwise is bringing in. So recently I saw a survey which said that Gartner says that it's not that the question to ask is not about is cloud secure, but it is, are you using cloud secure? And that's where it is, right? Yeah. With that, Sunil, hi, thanks for being here. I know you have a different opinion, maybe being a service provider. And do you see the similar kind of growth in cloud adoption due to this pandemic breakdown and the changes happening in the technology?
Thank you, Satya. And firstly, I would like to thank Cloud Security Alliance for giving me the opportunity to be part of this panel. So I'm going to be sharing a service provider's perspective to this whole discussion. Now, the question whether cloud adoption has increased, I think the answer is an emphatic yes. I think you've seen a lot of the large enterprises who already started their cloud journey. Perhaps you have seen a lot more acceleration of their applications from data center onto cloud, and many SMBs who had not started their journey, we started to see some of them started to adopt cloud. I think this is triggered by the fact that Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, and Google Cloud, I think they have experienced significant increase in revenues over the last 6 months. And I think their market cap is an all-time high. So I think that clearly reflects that they've experienced significant growth because a lot of the organizations have moved their applications to cloud, both big and small. Now, some of the trends that we have seen from our customers, especially the large enterprises, some of them have changed their whole network architectures. So earlier, if you had companies who are using hub and spoke model, where people working from home connecting to the data center, which is in a secure environment, and then from there connecting to applications, we started to see them directly connecting to cloud rather than kind of coming through a hub. So that's something that we have seen. We've also seen some enterprises who are using, say, private VPN, MPLS-based private networks, primary and secondary, replacing the secondary MPLS with the SD-WAN, software-defined WAN, which is completely through internet. And the moment you have a secondary circuit through internet, that again obviously opens up a threat, potentially hacked, right? So we've seen that architecture where companies are using secondary SD-WAN solutions to run some of their traffic. What we've also seen is from an IoT standpoint, because companies were connecting a lot of the physical assets to internet, and IoT became, a must for survival. Unlike earlier where you had to use IoT for maybe revenue growth and reducing cost and improving efficiencies, but IoT is a must for sustenance and survival today. And with a lot of these physical assets connecting to internet, again, that opens another threat vector, right? So the threat vector has widened. And I was just reading a report from SOX, well known in the fraud management space. They said in the first 2 quarters, they have seen a number of attacks on surveillance cameras. Okay, so cameras are nothing but video sensors, right? So again, that opens up, a lot more vulnerabilities, and hackers are exploiting that, right? So with IoT, a lot more assets going to connect to the internet. Again, the orchestration control of all of that is happening through cloud-based solutions. So, that is something for enterprises to watch out for, and I think what is very, very important is that an organization with moving applications to cloud and a lot of their operational assets connecting to internet, they need to have a holistic strategy. You just cannot have a cloud strategy only for IT assets, but the need to also integrate the operational technology environment when you actually build your cloud strategy. Satya.
Yeah, absolutely agree. IT and IoT is something which is growing rapidly. So since you already spoke about threat, why don't you go into the next level? My question is around threat landscape. So it's believed that threat landscape is changed a lot late in the latest, right? It's all about cryptojacking, crypto mining, and ransomware. That's something which we are hearing all the way, right? So thinking about these threats changing, what do you believe are the implications for CISOs and head of cybersecurities? How do you see that, Sunil?
Right, so you're right, Satya. So so it's just not the cryptojacking and ransomware attacks which have increased, but even the DDoS attacks have increased significantly over the last few months. And because we are a service provider and we have on an average monitor about 296 petabytes of traffic per day, and almost 30 to 40% of the traffic going the internet is on our backbone. So we kind of have a good visibility on the traffic which is going on the network. So with DDoS attacks increasing, and the reason being that a lot of the customer-facing apps have now moved to cloud, and that's the reason why you find the hackers wanting to increasingly have these DDoS attacks, proliferate them, and the various types of DDoS attacks, as you're aware. The other thing, very interesting thing that we are also seeing is that earlier, if the COVID-themed attacks were the phishing mails, which are very common earlier, right? COVID-themed phishing mails, which are very common. Now we have started to see some very interesting trends because the presidential election in the US is around the corner. You have these Black Lives Matter. So you started to find some of these mails which are very themed around these new issues. While that's true of the US, and India also will probably find maybe a lot of them around the most pressing issues which the media is addressing today. Now, coming to what CISOs can do, I think what is very, very important is, one is that they should have a visibility of all environments. I think they must have that need to have that visibility. Secondly, I think what we've also seen based on my own experience is that the need for the IT security organizations to align themselves more closely with business, collaborate more closely with business, because I think in traditional organizational structures, you find the CSO reporting perhaps to the CIO. And I think with security being so important, which perhaps the board should address, you'll probably find the need for chief security officers to perhaps report to the board or maybe the CEO himself. I think one other important challenge the CSO faces is the fact that I don't think they have enough skills within their organization. I think skills is a factor, and as a country also, India, we have a big challenge in terms of skills. I think last year an ASCOM report suggested that we have 3 million shortage of cybersecurity skills in India, and most organizations may not necessarily have those skills within their organizations. So the question would be whether to recruit people with the required cybersecurity skills or to work very closely with partners. And I think very important thing also for the CSO would be to realize that security is not their core competence. Hence, the need to work and collaborate with managed security providers, because security would require that. And if you are attacked, obviously, it is not just loss of revenue, but if it is out in the open, then your reputation and is also at stake, right? So I think the need for the CSO to acknowledge that they need to partner, they need to collaborate with other players and partners in the ecosystem. So I think broadly, these are the challenges that the chief security officer would be facing, Satya, in my view.
Yeah, thanks, Vinod. Thanks, Sunil. Sridhar, being a head of security for Flipkart, you might have seen the threat landscape changing, and the threats are changing. I'm not specifically asking what your organization is facing, but in general, what do you think are the implications of this change of threat vectors for CISOs in the daily life?
So, Satya, very relevant question. So, I'll give you an overall view what is happening and what kind of industry is seeing. So, if you look at it, the change in the threat, at least not the threat, the surface of attack has improved drastically. So every endpoint which was secure and which were protected by multiple layers of protection inside a corporate environment is directly exposed today. And having said that, there is so how many companies have revisited their AUP, acceptable usage policy? So if you ask me, the acceptable usage policy, what was there in a protected environment? So everything was fortified. You had a firewall, you had IDS IPS, you had the anti-bot solution, and you had the advanced threat protection, and then the endpoints. Now all this is broken. So this allowed a certain level of access for a person to access Facebook, person to access his personal mail. Now the same asset, it goes home and it is accessing in the same aspect of it, and the AOP remains same. So that change is not occurred. So how do you kind of balance this both is what is a struggle for most of the security professionals. And definitely the attack surface has grown so big. So as I explained earlier also, if there are 5,000 employees in your organization, example, and you have 5,000 network devices to manage now. So when it comes to your environment, these are all how good you trust, how valid is your trust factor. With the user trust is absolutely there. So you're giving them a user ID password, you're giving them a two-factor authentication, but how do you trust that device? What is coming into your network? So that was not prepared earlier when pre-COVID era. Now, earlier it was trusted. So with the two-factor authentication, assume that the person is coming. Many organizations never did that. So now there is a very sense of urgency to build that environment where you also authenticate the device what is coming in, and you also authenticate whether the device is secure enough to allow you into your network. So those elements have definitely need to be built in to ensure that the surface of attack has been so widely opened up for an attacker. You kind of go and evaluate all those is relevant or not. Second is the network what they are using. So today we assume that the internet what they're using is safe and secure. But if you go into any PG, it's been shared with so many people, and you walk into any public Wi-Fi where people are connecting and working from, even though it's called work from home, how many people are actually having the infrastructure, because people have traveled to tier 2, tier 3 cities and all. So you need to ensure their home Wi-Fi network is secure. Have they configured the Wi-Fi devices securely? Because that we know that what are the issues with those if it's not securely configured. And there are not one device, there are multiple devices in the environment, right? From your Alexa to your smart TV to your printer, everything is connected, and that is the small network what is there. So how do you enable it? How do you ensure that the employees are given awareness, or you enable them with a small tool to validate their security of their environment, what they're connecting from? Even though you could say that I have protected the endpoint, I've protected my infrastructure, but that endpoint is still part of a small network what is there in their home. So that has to be taken care. And how good are the employees' awareness done now? So people are only way of talking to them is a phone or a Zoom or a Teams or email. Email is, everyone knows that people, how many individuals read the policies of security when it is sent in an email. So there should be innovative of implementing that awareness. So not only you make it as a very traditional way of it, there should be some innovativeness in that. How do you kind of bring that awareness and make sure that what are all the work from home security culture people should adopt to? So those are all the aspects which I just want to share. And of course, the last piece is how good is the home environment to protect your confidential data. So people may be working on different aspects of it. As you rightly said in the start, banks have never allowed any of our employees to work from home. Today they're doing it. Now the home environment is where they're going to see, everyone is going to walk in and then see what is the person doing. If it is a very secluded room, it is still fine. If they're sitting in a room on a pathway or sitting in a corridor, it all puts again the risks of shoulder surfing, whatever you call it. So that the things which we forgot long back, the shoulder surfing is going to come back again and then haunt us.
Agree. Very valid points, Sridhar. I think what we are seeing is, I think organizations and companies are moving forward with various technological, what you can say, requirements or changes so rapidly and so quickly that it's very difficult for security team to adapt. For example, think about the e-KYC recently came. Indian banks and insurance companies have actually allowed that KYC could be done on and then you are ready to onboard using e-KYC. You don't need to come to a bank or you don't need to visit a insurance company. So there are policies coming in which actually is increasing these kind of what you can say, increasing the threat vector to the next level in the interest of business, in the interest of the other elements of business and the other points, right? So as you rightly said, I think there are too many changes coming in, and we can only address to what level we can, right? We cannot stop anybody using two browsers and using something confidential in one browser and non-confidential in another browser. How do we handle it when they are in a remote place? So these are challenges I think a lot of us are, and including Sridhar, I think you are addressing through your best practices. We'll come to that in the next follow-up question, but thanks for your points. Coming to you, because you said that you just moved to a actually cloud native organization, which is actually using cloud to a large extent. Do you see that similar kind of issues you are facing to implement cybersecurity policies because of the threat landscape? Do you find any differences during this time when what you can say, the threat factor is increasing and landscape is growing rapidly? Vikas, sorry, I think you might be speaking on mute.
Sorry, thank you. I definitely agree with Shida that the threat landscape has increased. You have more and more people working from homes. And though we had people working from homes earlier as well in certain cases, and people, because it's, you access networks and access cloud from everywhere, it was there. But when you have people working from home on a continuous basis, the aspects of their Wi-Fi and other areas becomes more acute, and you have to have those measures in place. Unfortunately, as Sridhar was talking about the acceptable use policy, what we did was in the initial few months only, we drafted a very simple one-pager document on simple to-dos list, to do or not do's and don'ts of what every employee has to practice. Where I think that is what you can immediately do. And we send that across to all employees. We ask them to follow the basic guidelines. And I'm saying that even if, let's say, a certain percentage do not follow it, the measurable actionables are there. For example, if you read any of the IS policies today, which most organizations have, people will not read them because they're quite voluminous, they are also cover the legalese part. But you have to make it a little more simpler for them. But coming from a threat perspective, yes, obviously your threats have increased, both from email, your endpoints has increased, both also your the number of attacks which you would get on websites and other places will obviously increase. And that is simply because you see a lot of job losses, you see a lot of scarce. People have a lot of people have more time. I'll say even criminals have a lot more time on their hands, so they obviously will focus more dedicatedly to launch more sophisticated attacks. And I think that is where your people would be one of your best protections. You have to educate users. You have to make them aware of what is required for them to adopt best practices. And I'll say that yes, I agree with Sunil's assertion that you have to partner with right specialists also in the field who can help you. And I'd say that is where even in cloud you do find today the number of partners who understand cloud security well is less, and that is where I think a cloud security alliance can also play a good part. You have to have those right partners who understand cloud. And in cloud, you can't get away with saying that I can talk about threats. You have to be hands-on. You have to know what is there. If you're talking about AWS environment, you have to have nuts and bolts pieces. In fact, just last week and it's still going on, we had a workshop on AWS, which was completely hands-on workshop with the threats which are there. So you can't have security technology guys not knowing about things on the cloud, because it's a completely different paradigm. You have DevOps engineers who work in and out with this thing, and the security guys have to actually compete and become hands-on. They cannot give a risk and say that this is going to get mitigated. You should mitigate this. You should know what is going on, what is the real life environment, and what is the measures a person can take to actually mitigate those threats. So I think that's where a deep understanding of cloud and this and also the various threats. When you understand your environment and infra well, and you have good visibility, then that is the time you will actually start understanding your threats and also start mitigating them. What we have also focused on, I think, where there's a lot of I'll say uh, threat aspect which can come in is, or attacks can come in, is from third parties. So we've started requesting the same level of protection and also requests from our third parties. We've asked them for simple things like enabling MFA for admins, ensuring VPN for critical applications, ensuring that they follow the best practices. And the checklist is not a tick in the box. I'm even still surprised by some product companies not doing simple security testing and VAPTs when they offer the products. I think that paradigm change is happening in India slowly. Now security is becoming a forerunner. And I think pandemic has helped security come at the forefront. So now understand cybersecurity is one of the major agendas, and I think it's those cyber attacks have increased, but it also put security at the forefront. I think that is where Security Alliance and also all security professionals, we can collaborate and help each other out. Thank you.
So, because I think since you are already there, you already touched the point. Let's with the conclusion, maybe can you give us some key takeaways and areas where Cloud Security Alliance can help or be a partner for getting a better cloud security practices?
I think first and foremost would be training and awareness. We already have very good certification programs and knowledge programs from Cloud Security Alliance, be it CCSK or the new Cloud Security Audit certification. And also a lot of frameworks are there. But I think more and more people need to know about them. We can have trainings on cloud control matrix, the CIS Foundations benchmark, and a lot of other things. So training and awareness is one thing which Cloud Security Alliance can really help. Second is updating what are the best practices from an Indian perspective also. I think Mr. Ekta and both you in Bangalore are doing a lot, and that is where we can start. What are our threats from an Indian and perspective? I think you did some study around that also. And then also understanding as to what are the requirements of, and also focusing on a lot of smaller SMBs and other organizations. That is where also a challenge. I think the bigger organizations would invariably have the awareness, the experts, and the budgets to do this. But where I think lies the focus also end user awareness, protection for small businesses. That is where also I think some focus needs to be there. So that because I think both Sridhar, me, or other enterprises use a lot of third-party smaller partners, and I think that is where their education and their awareness would, and their security levels, if they increase, would also improve. And from a pure industry or your own enterprise perspective, I think basic work from home practices, good awareness of employees is what is most essential. I think employees are your first and foremost protection against any kind of threats. They are a weakness, but you can always convert them to your strength, and that is where. And most important, cloud gives you a lot of visibility. You should use cloud native controls to understand your environment and then go for maybe more technology and better production solutions. But I think all cloud providers give fantastic cloud native tools which you should be using and to protect you and your environment properly.
Thank you, Vikas. Sunil, can you give me your perspective of the solution provider, or in general your opinion on what are the key takeaways and what CSA should do differently or help partners and the ecosystem of cloud?
Sure, Satya. So in fact, AT&T is a corporate member of CSA. We've been a member for quite some time now. And I think it's great to have CSA working on so many of these kind of initiatives. And I think what also is needed is to elaborate, to kind of enhance the ecosystem. I'll give you an example. We acquired a company called Alien Volt, which is very strong in threat intelligence. And we actually found one alliance called the Alien Volt Threat Intelligence Platform. It consists of about 140,000 members. A lot of them are security practitioners. So I think the need is for us to collaborate with bodies like CSA, so that we can share security best practices. Very, very important. And I think events like this, which CSA is doing, very, very important, create a lot more awareness among people, among enterprises about basic security, cyber security hygiene. I would like to call it security hygiene. Simple things like a password. You got to obviously have strong passwords, change it frequently, but you find many of them still using. In fact, I just brought to my attention many of the IoT devices today get compromised because people don't change the default password, and that's why they get compromised, right? So you obviously have to have that security hygiene, and then onus is on bodies like CSA to make sure that we have a lot more awareness programs, have these kind of events more frequently. And as Vikas also said, I think SMBs today are very, very slow in adopting IT, and for them, I think the big challenge for them is spending on security. For them, it's a cost. I think the realization among them that they need to adopt security because it is for their own good. And then also maybe look at partnering with the other bodies like NASSCOM. NASSCOM has got a center of excellence for cybersecurity. They work with a number of startups. So I think we also have to see whether we can get a lot of these startups. Many of these startups have some very good solutions around cybersecurity. So how we can collaborate with them. So I think, in my view, I think it's all about a very collaborative ecosystem that is needed. And CSA, can definitely play a big part in that by working with all the stakeholders involved. Satya,
I look forward to do that for sure. Thank you. Thanks for those inputs. Some of them will materialize soon, Sunil. Sridhar, so what do you think CSA should corporate, bring it forward to collaborate further and take it to next level?
So Satya, CSA has been, as all my colleagues here mentioned, CSA has been doing an amazing job of evangelizing security for cloud. I remember when Cloud Journey started, there was a straightforward question saying that how secure is cloud? That's when CSA was a kind of a consortium which helped to break that myth and then bring that actual trust factor in people saying that cloud is secure. So earlier I remember the CIOs were very afraid of going to the cloud and saying that is cloud secure. And now they are the evangelizers for cloud, and we also need to work with the security partners to ensure it. So it has matured. No more the conversation is cloud secure or not. How securely you enable cloud is what people should look at it. So none of the breaches, at least I've read and I have seen, is kind of cloud provider getting breached. It is more of the way they are configured. It is more of the way it is implemented is what make the cloud infrastructure what you build. Having said that, my ask from the Cloud Security Alliance should be that partnership with the industry, the companies, and evangelizing more will definitely help. I know you guys have bought the CSA Star certification sometime back, and look at the law. The large providers are already certified. How about enterprises getting certified? How do you look at that? Is what you should really revisit and see. The AWS and Amazon has been, Azure has been certified. How about enterprises who are outside of it and then they have their own private clouds? How do you enable them to get certified? So that would be a good story and journey to adopt to ensure that all the Indian enterprises who are having their own private cloud kind of get that assurance on the same framework what you use for large enterprises.
That's good. That's good. Thank you. That's a valid input and valuable input, Sridhar. I think we try to do best and bring forward as many as we can. And what we need is actually the support and collaboration, like the way today we did, to be continued, so that we can bring more best practices, not just for India, for across the globe. With that said, I say cloud adoption is not is a journey which is going to continue. It's not about whether to or not to, but it is about when. So everybody will adapt to cloud. It's just about when. Yeah. With that, thank you very much for being there. Appreciate your time and also appreciate your valuable inputs, whatever you brought in today. With this, we close our CSA India Summit webinar. Appreciate all of you. Have a good day. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Thank you, Satya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Satya, thanks. Thanks, Ekta.
1, 2, 3. Please hold. Yeah, please, Ekta, back.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Satya. Thank you again, all the panelists today. Appreciate your time. I think the panel discussion went well. I will share the link as well with you, with all of you, so that you can join us at the session on the 5th of September. Feel free to share it with your network as well, anybody whom you want to attend. And with that,
September or October? Yeah.
September. In fact, it's next week.
25th. 25th.
25th.
Yeah.
25th. What time is it? Take the what time?
Let me share this. I think it should be at around 1:30 or 2 p.m. India time.